It has been a month now that Caitlin has been out, and we still don't know when she will be returning to the court, if she will be returning to the court this season.
The WNBA has a problem, and that problem is Caitlin Clark not playing in WNBA games. Now, what all does this affect? The ratings are plummeting. Guys, there's ratings for a couple of these games that are eye-poppingly bad.
The WNBA just learned the hard way. It can't survive without Caitlin Clark. One injury to its biggest star, and ratings have tanked. What was supposed to be a season of growth is now a nightmare.
What are you going to do about it, Kathy? If and when Caitlin Clark returns, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to allow her to come back and get mauled? Are you going to allow her to come back and continue to get fouled? Because if we see what's going on here with the ratings, the owners have to see. And the owners are thinking to themselves, the bubble might be bursting. This bubble might be bursting, and Caitlin Clark being out for over a month is the catalyst to the burst.
In this video, we're breaking down how Clark's injury exposed the league's biggest flaw and what it means for its future. The WNBA was soaring. Everything was lined up for a record-breaking season, and fans were more excited than ever.
There was one matchup that this league can consistently rely on to produce massive viewership numbers. One matchup. The Chicago Sky versus the Indiana Fever.
Then, just like that, it all came crashing down. And it's all because the league bet everything on one player. Caitlin Clark's injury has ripped open a wound that's been festering for years. But is it too late for the league to recover?
Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, the league's two most noticeable names on the court at the same time. In fact, they relied so heavily on this matchup, they put these two teams against each other 5 times this season.
The WNBA had a pretty simple plan for the season. Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese. That's it. No need for complex strategies, no fancy campaigns, just the two biggest names in women's basketball facing off.
I feel bad for Caitlin Clark. She come out and said on Sue Bird's podcast that she's feeling the pressure of not playing in these games. And that Fever Sky viewership fell off the map.
The league knew it had something special when these two met, and they made sure to market it hard. Caitlin Clark, the three-point sharpshooter, was the face of the league. Her rivalry with Reese was electric, and fans couldn't get enough of it. If you were a basketball fan, you were watching every game where Clark played. Her name was everywhere.
All right. A massive fall off from earlier in the year. No Caitlin Clark, no Angel Reese. Now, Angel Reese is back injury? Question mark? Nobody's exactly sure what the hell's going on there at all.
But what happens when the star you've built your entire league around goes down? It all comes crumbling down. This wasn't just about losing a player, it was about the WNBA losing its identity. When Clark went out with an injury, it left the WNBA scrambling to figure out how to engage fans. The problem wasn't just Clark's absence, it was the glaring void left by her departure.
Essentially, Angel Reese gets the ball, Caitlin Clark goes over, does a hard foul, commits a hard foul on Angel Reese. She falls to the ground. After that, Angel Reese gets up. She's feeling super spicy. She's charging at Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is walking away. Aaliyah Boston steps in and kind of stops Angel Reese. Courtney Vandersloot also steps in.
If the WNBA can't thrive with its stars on the court, what's next? Let's talk about the numbers. Before Clark's injury, the WNBA was riding high. Big matchups, packed arenas, record-breaking ratings. But after Clark went down, the numbers fell off a cliff.
Several more weeks pretty much puts Caitlin Clark to coming back at the very end of the regular season. If you look at the Indiana Fever's schedule right now, they only have 12 games left, and there's exactly 4 weeks left in the regular season. And the craziest thing about this last groin injury with Caitlin Clark is how it's been covered. The day after she had the groin injury, she was listed as day-to-day, and then a couple weeks after that, then she was listed to being out indefinitely.
The first game between the Chicago Sky and Indiana Fever this season was massive. 2.7 million viewers on ABC. That's huge. But it wasn't just about star power. It was about everything that made this matchup special. Clark's foul drama, her triple-double performance, Chicago getting demolished, and even the infamous league investigation that had everyone talking. This was an event.
Is there any chance that the WNBA, that Kathy Engelbert saw some of the ratings that I'm about to show you now and said, hey, Indiana Fever, can you do us a favor? Can you do us a solid? Can you just tease a Caitlin Clark return, kind of boost these up a little bit? Can you just dangle a Caitlin Clark return in front of the fans' faces, try to boost these ratings up a little bit?
And that's where the downward spiral started. The second game, with Clark out, still pulled in a respectable 1.92 million viewers. But it wasn't the same. That magic, gone. Then the ratings continued to slide, from 2.7 million to 1.9 million, and then crashing to 1.5 million. And the lowest point, a mere 1.3 million viewers. That's a catastrophic drop for a league trying to build momentum.
Guys, I got to tell you, in two of these other games I'm going to show you, it is bad back in WNBA territory of where they were like 3 years ago or 4 years ago. I saw these ratings and was like, you got to be joking. No, it's not a joke. Yeah, pay us what you owe us.
The WNBA can't afford to lose that many fans so quickly, especially not for a marquee matchup like this. Caitlin Clark wasn't just a player on the court, she was the league's magic. She had a unique blend of charisma, skill, and drama that made her the perfect figurehead for the WNBA.
That if you fail to protect your stars, Caitlin Clark, if you fail to protect your stars, sometimes they might not be around all the time. Sometimes they might get nicked up. Sometimes they might get dinged up. And sometimes they might get a soft tissue injury that takes weeks, if not months, to correctly heal. And that's the predicament the WNBA now finds themselves in. Caitlin Clark has been out a month and 1 day.
Fans tuned in for her shots, her fights with referees, her back and forth with Angel Reese, and of course, her undeniable talent. She was the complete package. Without her, the WNBA feels like an empty shell.
We have officially regressed. We have went way backwards, which is slightly above the average national TV viewership for Fever games this year. But it also is the least watched of the 8 Chicago and Indiana games since 2024. Look at this, folks.
Matchups like the Fever versus Sky simply aren't the same without Clark on the court. Fans are still interested, but not in the same way. The excitement isn't there, and neither is the urgency.
And just yesterday, she was listed as a game time decision for today's game against the Dallas Wings. And then after practice yesterday, Coach Stephanie White basically came out and said, like, no, Caitlin Clark hasn't even been practicing. So they changed it from a game time decision to her being out. This has been all over the place.
This isn't just a slight dip, it's a huge chasm. The league is missing the one player who can make basketball feel exciting again. There's no drama, there's no spark. What's left is basketball that feels flat, and fans notice that. The WNBA's brand this season revolved almost entirely around Caitlin Clark. Her face was plastered on every ad, every highlight reel, and every promotional piece. Her rivalry with Reese was the center of attention. The league didn't just market its stars, it marketed Clark. And now, without her, the league doesn't have the same draw. Ratings aren't just falling, they're crashing. What was once a highly anticipated season filled with promise is now a season defined by absence. Clark's injury exposed a fatal flaw in the WNBA's strategy. It was too dependent on her. If one player can cause such a drastic shift in the league's fortunes, the league didn't build a strong enough foundation. The WNBA needs to learn that building a sustainable future requires more than just a single star.
And I get it to a certain extent. The fans, the media does not need to know every little thing that's going on with Caitlin Clark's injuries, especially a star player like that. We will never know all the information, nor should we know all the information, and that's actually good for Caitlin. It protects her for when she does come back on the court. She can't be targeted. Teams can't use a certain injury or ailment against her if people don't really know what is going on. But the reporting of her timeline in general, there has been no rhyme or reason to what has been shared about it.
As the ratings continued to fall, the WNBA went into full desperation mode. There were constant rumors, teases, and whispers that Caitlin Clark might return sooner than expected. The league dangled the hope of her return as a way to boost viewership, but it was all for show. Here's the problem. Fans aren't as naive as the league thinks. They see through the game time decision teases. This kind of PR tactic works once, maybe twice, But after that, the audience gets tired. They start to realize they're being strung along, and the trust erodes. Desperation mode is dangerous for any league, but especially for one like the WNBA. It's a quick fix, but it's not sustainable. The WNBA needs Clark back, and they need her back now. If they can't get her back to full strength, things might spiral out of control. Let's talk about what really caused Caitlin Clark's injury: poor officiating. All season long, Clark was subjected to rough physical play, and the referees did nothing to protect her. She was hacked, shoved, and taken out mid-air. But the refs? They did nothing about it.
Because it seems with Caitlin Clark out, not only are the Indiana Fever games losing their steam, not only is the marquee matchup against the Chicago Sky losing its steam, that's the marquee matchup this league has to offer casual fans. You go up to anybody in the streets, name 2 WNBA players. One is always going to be Caitlin Clark, and the second is usually going to be Angel Reese. Maybe you'll get a Sabrina, maybe. But usually it's going to be those 2. Maybe you'll get a Paige, maybe. But usually it's going to be those 2. 85% of the time, those are the 2 names you're going to get.
This wasn't a freak accident. It wasn't a one-off moment of bad luck. This was the direct result of the league failing to protect its stars. The WNBA allowed Clark to be beaten up without consequence. Now the league is paying the price. What if the referees had stepped in? What if they had called the fouls and given Clark the protection she deserved? Would she still be sidelined? Probably not. This injury could have been prevented if the league had done its job, but now they're dealing with the fallout. The long-term consequences of Clark's injury could be even worse than the immediate fallout. The WNBA is in danger of losing a generation of fans who are now looking elsewhere for their basketball fix. Casual fans, those who aren't die-hard followers, are already switching to other sports. They'll watch other leagues. They'll tune into the NFL preseason. They'll get invested in baseball. And once those viewers are lost, it's nearly impossible to get them back.
Kathy Engelbert, this is what happens when you don't protect your superstar. This is what happens when you don't protect your cash cow. This is what happens when you allow gambling to run rampant in your league. I just had to throw that in there because that's what's taking place. This is what happens when you have referees call fouls one way for one individual and not the other way for the other individual.
The WNBA needs to recover quickly. If Clark doesn't return for the playoffs, it could be disastrous for the league's credibility. The entire narrative of historic growth will crumble. The postseason should be a time when the league solidifies its future. But without Clark, it could be the moment when everything falls apart. Here's the ugly truth for the WNBA. Without Caitlin Clark, the league is struggling. It's not just about ratings anymore, it's about survival. The WNBA has built its entire business model around Clark. She's the reason networks are tuning in. She's the reason advertisers are putting money into the league. She's the reason fans are showing up. And without her, the league doesn't have the same pull. The historic growth the WNBA has been touting? It was all Clark. Take her out of the equation, and what do you have? A league that's fighting to stay relevant in a crowded sports market.
Every team is fighting for a spot in the playoffs. Caitlin Clark should not be thrown back into any mix if she doesn't have significant practices under her belt before she goes into game speed. You can try to simulate game speed as much as you want in practice. You will never be able to. Game speed is game speed. There's also a lot more adrenaline, all of these different things pumping when you're playing in front of a sold out crowd that the Indiana Fever do every single night. If I'm their coach, she needs to practice for at minimum a week. At the minimum, she needs to be doing everything in practice for at least a week before you throw her back in the mix.
Let's dive deeper into the so-called historic growth the WNBA has been boasting about. The league, with its ever-increasing ticket sales and sellouts, has continuously pushed the narrative that it's growing rapidly, drawing in new viewers and boosting merchandise sales. But here's the cold truth, that growth is built on Caitlin Clark. Take Clark out of the picture, and what you have left is a league still struggling to find a consistent viewership outside of her influence. When Clark plays, the ratings spike. When she doesn't, they crater. This isn't growth, this is dependency. A league thriving off one star, one player, and hoping no one notices the cracks in the foundation. Is there hope for the WNBA moving forward? Can they rebound from this? Possibly, but it'll take more than just Clark's return. The WNBA needs to rethink its strategy. They need to build a league that doesn't rely on one player. They need to foster other stars, build rivalries, and create a more diverse and sustainable product.
It's not impossible. Look at the NBA. While it once had its heavy reliance on a few superstars, it now thrives on the strength of multiple stars across different teams. The WNBA needs to make those same moves, but it can't do that if it continues to treat one player as the league's lifeline.
We already know what happens when Caitlin Clark gets back out on the court. Teams play defense on her differently. They play extra physical with her. There's all of these different factors that come into play. That's why I'm sort of leaning to the point of maybe Caitlin should be out for the rest of the season. Maybe this season is just done for her. Maybe it doesn't make sense for her to come back into the mix if the Fever aren't contenders. Are the Fever contenders at this point? I'm just not so sure. Do you risk another injury that can again compound and turn into something else down the line?
So, can the WNBA survive without Caitlin Clark? The honest answer is probably not. The league's future is tied to one player, and that's a dangerous position to be in. The WNBA needs Clark, and they need her back on the court as soon as possible. Without her, the league's ratings, brand, and identity are in serious jeopardy. What do you think? Can the WNBA bounce back, or is it too late? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for the latest updates. We'll see you in the next one.